In the shadowy edges of Norse myth, where giants roam and gods perish, there exists a beast whose very name strikes dread into divine hearts. His howl echoes across realms, his fangs drip with prophecy, and his destiny is entwined with the doom of the gods. This is no ordinary monster. He is a force of inevitability, a creature forged by chaos, feared even by the mighty Allfather himself. To the gods, he was not simply a threat, but a ticking clock counting down to their destruction. This is the story of Fenrir, the monstrous wolf born of betrayal and shadow, nurtured in fear and destined to break the chains of fate. He did not ask for war. He was made for it. Welcome to the legend of Fenrir, the wolf that devoured the gods. Fenrir's story begins in the realm where chaos takes form, Jotunheim, land of the giants. And from its cold, untamed wilderness came Angrboda, a fearsome giantess of immense power and grim foresight. It was there, in secrecy and shadow, that she bore 3 children with Loki, the trickster god whose loyalties bent like flame in the wind. Loki, shapeshifter, mischief maker, and occasional ally to the gods, was no stranger to controversy. But never before had his actions sent such a chill down Odin's spine. For from this unholy union emerged not children of joy, but harbingers of ruin. The first was Jormungandr, a serpent so vast he would one day encircle the world and grasp his own tail. The second was Hel, a girl with a face half beautiful and half decayed, destined to rule over the realm of the dead. And the third was Fenrir, a wolf unlike any the 9 realms had ever known. Even as a cub, his power radiated like a storm on the horizon, untamed, primal, and impossibly strong. He did not simply grow, he devoured the days between sunrise and dusk, each breath swelling his strength. When Odin, the Allfather, peered into the well of fate and saw these children's destinies unfold, he was filled with dread. The runes whispered of Ragnarok, the end of the gods, and these offspring stood at the center of it. So Odin acted. He hurled Jormungandr into the ocean's depths, where the serpent coiled around Midgard like a living noose. He cast Hel into Niflheim, banishing her to preside over the souls of the dead. But Fenrir, curiously, he did not destroy nor exile. Instead, Odin ordered the wolf to be brought to Asgard, the very seat of the gods. Perhaps he hoped to control the beast. Perhaps he feared that trying to kill Fenrir would bring his own doom sooner. Or perhaps, like all who try to outwit fate, Odin had already lost the game the moment he played it. In the golden halls of Asgard, under watchful eyes and whispers of dread, the wolf pup grew, and with him, so did fear. In the early days, Fenrir was just a pup, albeit one unlike any the gods had ever seen. His coat was as dark as a starless night, his eyes gleamed with a sharp, unnatural intelligence, and his growl could make even the bravest warriors pause. But it wasn't his appearance that unnerved the gods, it was his growth. Each day, Fenrir doubled in size, strength, and ferocity. He devoured whole oxen with ease and could crush boulders in his jaws before he had learned to fully howl. No magic or weapon could pierce his hide, and what began as awe among the gods quickly curdled into fear. Yet not all kept their distance. Only Tyr, the god of war and justice, dared to walk beside the beast. It was Tyr who fed Fenrir when the others stood back. Tyr who whispered to him when no one else would. And Tyr who met his eyes and saw not just a monster, but a creature born of mistrust and isolation. The wolf came to trust him, and that trust became the god's weapon. For even as Fenrir grew and played in the fields of Asgard, the Aesir held whispered meetings in shadowed halls. Odin had seen the runes. He knew that Fenrir would one day slay him in the fires of Ragnarok, that the wolf would break free and usher in the end of days. So they resolved to act, not with battle, for none among them could best him, but with deceit. They would bind him, trick him into chains, disguise fear as a game. The plan was simple: challenge Fenrir's strength with enchanted chains, praising his power and daring him to break them. The wolf, proud and eager, accepted the challenge. The first chain, Lothinger, was thick and forged with dwarven might. Fenrir shattered it with a single shake. The second, Dromi, twice as strong, was also torn apart. The gods laughed nervously, pretending joy, but beneath their masks grew desperation. They needed a chain no brute force could break. Something crafted not from iron, but from impossibility itself. So Odin turned to the dwarves of Svartalfheim, who fashioned Gleipnir, a ribbon-thin chain made from 6 impossible things. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the breath of a fish, the roots of a mountain, the spittle of a bird, and the sinews of a bear. These were elements that could not exist in the natural world. Gleipnir was woven from absence itself, a paradox in silk form. It was not bound by the laws of nature, because it had never obeyed them. Gleipnir was light as silk, but stronger than any chain ever forged. The trap was set, and Fenrir's fate drew near. With feigned smiles and honeyed words, the gods approached Fenrir once more. They praised his might, his unrivaled strength, and presented Gleipnir as a challenge. They told him it was a game, to prove he could break even the thinnest of threads. But Fenrir, no longer the naive pup, had grown wiser. He saw through their ploy. His hackles raised, his eyes narrowed. There was deceit in their laughter and tension in their cheer. The ribbon was too light, the game too eager. And so, the wolf made a demand. "If this is a test of trust," he said, "then let one of you place your hand within my jaws. If there is no treachery, you will have no need to fear." The gods fell silent. None stepped forward. None except Tyr, the only god who had fed him, who had spoken to him not as a monster, but as a soul. With solemn eyes, Tyr extended his hand into Fenrir's mouth. Not as a trick, not with hatred, but because someone had to. The binding began. The gods wrapped Gleipnir around the wolf's limbs. As they tightened the ribbon, it shimmered with ancient magic. And when Fenrir strained to break it, when he twisted, snapped, and growled, it did not give, it held fast. Fenrir strained and writhed, his limbs thrashing like a tempest across the earth. But Gleipnir, that feather-light ribbon of impossibility, did not yield. The more he pulled, the tighter it grew, binding not only his body but his destiny. Realization dawned in his eyes. He had been betrayed. The wolf's golden eyes flicked toward Tyr, the one he had trusted. The god's expression was heavy with sorrow, but the deed was done. With a thunderous snap, Fenrir's jaws closed, severing Tyr's hand at the wrist. Blood spilled on the stones of Asgard, and the gods stood frozen, not in triumph, but in silence. The price had been paid, the betrayal complete. Tyr did not cry out, his sacrifice was made. The gods fell back, silent and shaken. Bound and beaten, Fenrir let out a howl unlike anything the 9 realms had ever heard. It tore through Asgardr, shook the branches of Yggdrasil, and echoed across Midgard and beyond. Mountains trembled. Wolves in distant forests raised their heads. Even Hel in her underworld heard the cry of her brother. But the gods would not allow his voice to ring forever. They drove a sword into his mouth, the hilt lodged against his lower jaw, the blade piercing upward through the roof of his mouth, forcing his great jaws wide open. His howls were silenced, trapped behind bloodied fangs and steel. His saliva poured from his mouth in unending rivers, mingling with blood and rage. From this mixture came Von, the river of despair, a cursed stream said to carry the bitterness of betrayal and the promise of vengeance. The gods then dragged him far from the halls of Asgard, deep into a forgotten land, an exile of darkness and stone. There, beneath the earth, they chained him to a boulder, a beast imprisoned not just by magic but by fear itself. And there he waits. Ages pass. The world turns. The gods feast in Valhalla, men die in battle, the runes shift their meanings, and still Fenrir lies beneath the surface, his body bound but his spirit burning. He does not sleep. He remembers. He remembers the hand that fed him. He remembers the sword between his teeth. He remembers the gods who laughed as they betrayed him. And most of all, he remembers the prophecy. But no chain lasts forever. not even one forged from the impossible. In the silent chambers beneath the earth where shadows breathe and time grows thin, Fenrir waits. Every moment, he pulls. Every century, he strains. And as the world above forgets, the bonds grow weaker, the tension becomes prophecy. The Norns, ancient weavers of fate who dwell at the roots of Yggdrasil, saw it long ago. In their loom of destiny, a thread burned black, a thread with the name Ragnarok. The end would come not in silence, but in thunder. The sun and moon would vanish, swallowed by Fenrir's sons, Skull and Hati. Stars would fall from the sky, and the great tree Yggdrasil would groan under the weight of doom. Midgard would tremble, its people gripped with dread, as the sea boiled and the frost giants marched. And in the midst of this chaos, a sound like the cracking of the world itself, Gleipnir snapping. Fenrir rises. The once-bound beast, muzzled with steel, now throws off his prison like wind brushing leaves. His limbs stretch, his eyes blaze, his mouth opens wide, so wide that it spans the heavens and the earth. His howl marks the beginning of the end. It splits the sky, calling his kin to war. The dead rise, the sky bleeds, the world staggers into oblivion. From the east, Fenrir charges into the field of final battle, Vigrid, where gods and monsters clash for the fate of all realms. Standing in his path is Odin, the Allfather, the one who once feared the wolf pup enough to bind him. Clad in golden armor, riding the eight-legged horse Sleipnir, spear Gungnir in hand, Odin meets his fate. The battle is brief but monumental. Odin strikes, but Fenrir is no longer a chained beast. He is rage incarnate. With a snap of his mighty jaws, he devours the king of the gods whole, ending an age in one breath. It is not a victory, it is a reckoning. The earth trembles, fire rains, the sea floods the land. The gods fall one by one to beast and blade, claw and curse. As Odin, Allfather and ruler of Asgard, vanishes into the black maw of Fenrir, the world begins to unravel. It is not just a god who falls, it is order, hope, and balance. Thunder cracks, the roots of Yggdrasil split, flames rise from Muspelheim, devouring the skies, while the oceans churn and rise, swallowing the shores. Midgard is torn asunder. The gods cry out in rage and despair, their leader gone, their fate sealed. But in the chaos, one figure does not scream, he does not mourn. He does not shout vengeance, he acts. From the smoke and ruin steps Vidar, the silent son of Odin, a god of few words, little lore, and deep resolve, born for one purpose, trained for one moment. Upon his foot is the boot of eternity, fashioned over countless ages from the discarded leather scraps of humankind. A gift forged by quiet sacrifice, one piece at a time, until it was strong enough to face the end of days. Vidar strides forward, not with fury, but with inevitability. Fenrir sees him. Blood glistens on his fur. His fangs drip with the power of prophecy fulfilled. But in Vidar's eyes, there is no fear, no doubt, only resolve. With divine strength, Vidar places his foot upon Fenrir's lower jaw, driving it into the earth. The wolf roars, thrashes, bites, but he cannot move. The boot holds like the weight of destiny itself. Then, with both hands, Vidar grabs the upper jaw. With a cry that shakes the firmament, he tears the wolf's mouth wide open, ripping flesh, sinew, and spirit apart. The beast who devoured gods is undone. Fenrir's howl dies in a gurgle of blood and breath. His body collapses, thunderous and final. But the price is steep. The battlefield is soaked in divine blood. Thor has fallen to Jormungandr. Freyr lies slain by the fire giant Surtur. Loki and Heimdall lie dead in each other's arms, mortal enemies brought low together. The skies are aflame, the seas boil and rise, the earth sinks beneath the waves. All that once was, gods, monsters, humans, is consumed. This is Ragnarok, not the end of the world, but the end of a world. The prophecy is fulfilled, the circle is closed. And in the silence after chaos, the ashes begin to fall. Fenrir is more than a beast, more than claws, teeth, prophecy, and blood. He is fate given form, a creature born into a world that fear he even howled. From the moment he opened his eyes, the gods looked not with compassion but with dread. He was a child of chaos, yes, but also a child abandoned, deceived, and condemned, not for what he had done, but for what he was destined to do. And therein lies Fenrir's tragedy. He is not evil by nature. He was not born to hate. He was driven to fury by betrayal, silenced by fear, and chained by those who claimed wisdom but acted out of panic. His story speaks to something deeply human: the terror of the unpredictable, the need to control what we don't understand, and the consequences of judging by destiny instead of choice. The gods feared the prophecy of Ragnarok, and in trying to prevent it, they created it. They raised Fenrir in Asgard, treated him like a beast, and bound him like a criminal before he ever committed a crime. It was not Fenrir alone who sealed Odin's fate. It was fear, hubris, and the relentless grip of fate. In this light, Fenrir becomes a symbol of wildness, yes, but also of freedom, of resistance, and of the dangers of oppression disguised as order. He is the rage of the unheard, the howl of the misunderstood, the jaws that bite when trust is broken. And perhaps that is why his story endures, not just as a tale of gods and monsters, but as a warning. That even those who sit on golden thrones can be torn down, that even chains forged from magic and fear will one day break, and that even fate, no matter how divine, is not without consequence. Fenrir is not just the end, he is the reckoning. Fenrir's tale does not end with his death. His howl still reverberates through the corridors of time, echoing in modern myths, games, and nightmares. He is the embodiment of chaos, the unshackled force beneath our carefully built worlds. The beast we try to chain, the doom we hope never arrives. Yet no matter how tight we bind him, no matter how far we try to bury his story, Fenrir's presence lingers, undying, untamable. In our attempts to control him, we have only magnified his power. For the more we fear the wild, the more it grows. The gods believed they could outwit destiny, but destiny is never truly in chains. Every bond weakens over time, every restraint rusts, and when those chains finally break, when the last of our illusions crumbles, the wolf will run free once more. Fenrir is not just a myth. He is a reminder of our fears, our desires for control, and our struggle against forces too great to understand. He is the monster that swallowed the sky, the god-eater, and the force of nature that waits at the edge of all things. This is the story of Fenrir, the beast, the prophecy, and the eternal force that lives within us all. For as long as we are bound by fear, he will always return. And in the end, we are all caught between the chains and the howl.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.